Hello everyone, I'm Tracy and thank you for tuning in today. Today's video, I'm going to be going into the ball that the Maui Police Department had on May 23rd. So it's been a few weeks or 2 weeks. And I'm going to point out some interesting things there. But before we get started, if you have not done so already, if you could please subscribe before you leave, I would really appreciate it. And also please like, comment, and share this video so we can get the word out. Okay, so with that, let's start out with this ball that was thrown. I have the invite right here. So they called it the Service Above Self Awards. And I did try to clarify whether this was just about the event on the 8th, and it doesn't sound like it. And this took place at the Grand Wailea Hotel. It's a very nice hotel. And something that is very, I guess, questionable is that not everyone in the department was invited. And not everyone that served during the fire was invited either. So I'm assuming there's a lot of favoritism going on. Now, when you're looking at a department where staffing is a problem, it's hard to keep the department staffed and morale is very low, like we've heard in the survey by the Police's Union. You know, not inviting the whole department is very bad for that, because those that don't get invited, you know, it really puts them in a bad place. So I think that was a very poor decision, and that was made by Chief Pelletier. Something else that I found interesting is if you look at this list of the awards given that day, you see here under Command and Control that John Pelletier got an award. So he gave himself that award. And in a little bit, I'll play a clip where he does admit that he was not in the EOC or Emergency Operations Center. Someone else that's mentioned here is Assistant Chief Keola Tom. My understanding is he was on the mainland on the 8th, and then he came back in town the next day. So these were not just for, you know, people that were involved with the fire response, but there were a pretty decent amount of awards given. I also heard that there were people or members of the department that went above and beyond who were not even invited to this event, let alone get an award. And some people who were not involved got invited and were given an award that night. Something else that I noticed looking into let me play the video of John Pelletier admitting that he was not in the EOC.
Chief John Pelletier refuses to be interviewed for this investigation on road closures, but I sent in this question via a colleague. Were you in the EOC on August 8th?
The appropriate operational commander for the incident is and was an assistant chief, and that's appropriate because if you're doing that job, you can't do your other job. And so we had the right people there.
2018 fire. Chief Faumu was one of the first ones in the EOC. Usually, up until now, it's always been the office of the chief that's mandated. And
so you're talking about for the police department, the chief himself has been in the EOC?
Correct. It's been the chief, the deputy chief, and the senior assistant chief. The reason behind that is when decisions have to be made, you need somebody with the rank that commands across the bureaus of the department immediately.
So right there, we heard him say that he was not in the EOC, and that, according to him, that was appropriate. But you heard Clyde say that the chief is usually one of the first people to check in at the EOC. Now, I have more evidence with the sign-in sheet here. So John Pelletier, there is no signature. The highest ranking officer from the police department that signed in that day is Greg Okamoto, and that's right here. I'll blow that up so you guys can see it better. So he signed in. And something else that I noticed when looking at the sign-in sheet, so we see here that John Pelletier did not sign in at all that day. And the highest ranking officer that signed in is Greg Okamoto, and he was the assistant chief at the time. And the time is 17:20 or 5:20 p.m. I'll give you guys a better look at that. So that's his signature right there. So why that is questionable is 5:20 is pretty late as far as, you know, the advancement of the fire, because at about 5:30, there were reports of people jumping in the water already. So Front Street had already burned and many people had already perished. And I'm assuming a lot of the town had already burned down. So there was a long period where there was no assistant chief or higher ranking officer in the EOC. And you heard Clyde say that it would make things very difficult without someone of that ranking from the police department being in the EOC. So I think that was a huge mistake on the part of the police department. Although despite all that, those people got awards. So I just thought that was worth mentioning. Another thing I wanted to bring up is this notice that's been given to the fire survivors that are getting housing through FEMA. So on June 10th, they will no longer be getting housing. So they're going to get kicked out. And they're also going to get they're also going to lose their food assistance. So right now, if you're a survivor, you can go to one of the hubs and get food. But on June 10th, that will be cut off. So they're really trying to discourage the survivors from staying in town. And I believe there's a push to get them to move to the mainland. And I'm going to mention this really quickly, but I'll go into more details in a future video. But Governor Green has recently offered this free trip to the mainland anywhere Alaska Airlines flies to. So there's a lot of information on that I'll be going into at a later time. But I just thought it was ironic that around the same time that they're cutting people off from housing and their food, they're giving people a free flight to the mainland. So I just wanted to point that out. And more on that in a future video. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.